Hey, that works. Did it focus? Can you see me?
Yeah, that's good.
Sweet. All right, man. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Just busy with work, the usual stuff.
So I can just of course start from the beginning and ask how you wanted to pursue acting or voiceover because I know that the first credit that I could find in anything was on camera for a TV show, Video Game High School.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, to get my start into acting, what's funny is that you mentioned video game high school. I was still a music teacher at that age and era. So, I was actually an instructor for a bunch of like marching bands and stuff. It was a lot
Yeah.
of fun. It was really cool. But I wasn't actually an actor back then. I didn't really consider acting. I was actually just a fan of Video Game High School. And I signed on to be an extra, and that became a credit. And I was like, yo, this is pretty cool. This is pretty fun. It wasn't until probably around 2017 that I started taking classes for voiceover. And those classes for voiceover, it was really fun. I got really interested into it, and I was like, "Hey, let's pursue it." I took it with Crispin Freeman. He was my first one, first
Yep.
ever teacher, and he was really cool. And I was just like, "Man, like I really like this. I really really enjoy this. Let's push further." So I took classes. I studied a lot, and I actually worked in production a lot. I worked with a lot of studios as a production assistant, dubbing coordinator, and all that stuff. So I was always around voiceover and acting. And then I eventually got my shot during, like a couple of projects here and there were like, hey, Christian, you're interested in voiceover. Let's throw you in. So I got a few professional credits here and there. And that's kind of how I got my start. It wasn't until quarantine that you started to see my name like a lot more
Hmm.
because, I have a professional setup at home. These studios knew that I could record from home. And, that's how my career took off. So that's just a little basic for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did see on your website that you studied with Julie Madalena too. I actually interviewed her a while ago
Yeah.
just because I'm a
Yeah,
fan.
she's so cool. I love her. She was so nice. I took I want to say like 3 or 4 classes with her. She's just a pleasant person in general.
Hmm. Was your in terms of voiceover, was your goal kind of to get into anime specifically, or?
Yeah, so I initially did try to get into voiceover specifically for anime, and the route took me elsewhere. I
Hmm.
am in a couple of anime, but I'm actually doing a lot more video games in general, which I'm
Right.
a much bigger fan. I love video games. It's a different type of pace and it's a different kind of acting. Like every field requires a certain level of acting, and for video games, it's this really kind of nitty gritty cinematic acting, which I love. And I enjoy that. Like think like The Last of Us,
Hmm.
that kind of deal, where that stuff, it's like, oh man, like it kind of hits you in the soul. That's what I've been booking a lot of nowadays, and it's fun. I love it. Yeah, but originally was anime. I would love to be in more anime, but I'll take video games, man.
Right. And what is the timeline of the first anime role that you got then?
My first anime role. Oh, that's a great question. The first anime I ever booked, I was still a project coordinator at this studio, but the director liked me, so she let me audition. It was called Shimajiro, which is
Yep.
like a Japanese animation, and a Japanese kid animation. And I play this character named Mimi Lin's dad, but his real name is Sota.
Right.
And he's really cool. He's like this super energetic guy where everybody in the show is just like, oh, but Shimajiro, you need to be okay. And then I'm there screaming my head off. So he's a really interesting guy. I love him. That was my first ever anime role.
So was Pokemon shortly after that?
Pokemon was indeed short after that. I worked on production with Lisa Ortiz, and we got to know each other, and she was really cool. And she goes, "Let me give you a shot." So she gave me a shot. She gave me a couple of small roles here and there, and yeah, that was a blast. Lisa's a legend, so she's
Hmm.
so cool.
And I know the that you got to work with Funimation for Ikebukuro. Must be a
Yes,
park.
yes. That was exciting. So specifically, the studio was Studio Nano. I've never worked with them before, never heard of them, and they just asked me. They're like, "Hey, we have this character for you. He's it's real quick in and out." And I'm like, "Sure." Came in, recorded the character. Probably one of the most influential 3-line characters I've ever voiced in my life. Where I literally come in and I'm super shy, and I just ask if he's okay. And then my character, I'm not gonna say what happens, but he incites this big event that has been boiling up for the entire season. I'm like, dude, that's insane. So
Right.
my character was so influential for the amount of small screen time he had. He was really cool.
Mhm. I know you've gotten to work a lot as a like audio description narrator for movies and TV shows.
Yes.
Did that like how did that come into play?
Yeah, so I worked at this place. It was called WGBHLA, and they were they focus on audio description and closed captioning and subtitling. And they were just kind of looking for some narrators, and the guy who was casting heard me talk, and he was just like, "Do you do voiceover?" I'm like, "I do." How do you know? And he goes, come into the booth. So I go into the booth. He goes, read this. So I just read a couple things, and he goes, yeah, okay, I could fall asleep to your voice. This is good. So then he literally just tossed me in, and like, good thing I had training. Like I literally like this is around like my first year doing voiceover, so I had training, and I got to do all those things, and it was really fun. So I've been pushing for more audio description lately. It's so fun and it's so necessary. I mean, it helps those with a hard of sight, to really
Yep.
enjoy films, and I love it. So yeah.
So you don't have a particular preference in terms of what you pursue with voiceover. It's just kind of anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, literally behind the microphone, I'm down with it because
Mhm.
the most fun that I ever have is just being behind the mic and just going out there and just exploring and playing behind the microphone. Like, even with audio description, it sounds like I'm just reading. I'm actually playing a really necessary part in that storytelling that
Right.
it's like no one really knows about. So anytime I'm behind the mic, dude, I'm cool with it. It's like,
Mhm.
what, you want me to do commercial, promo, Western anime? Ah, I don't care. Just let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, well, outside of anime, I know that you've gotten to be on Rainbow High, of course.
Yes. Yeah, Rainbow High. Yeah, that one's because of my friend Jenny Ikebukuro at the time. Yeah, she was so cool. Great director. It's one of those ones where she just gave me a shot. I ended up auditioning and I ended up booking it. And it was my first ever type of animation of that kind. So it was a new experience. And every time I came in, I learned something new. So you got to see that character grow as he, showed up on the screen more and more and more. And I mean, honestly, working with Jenny and being Aiden really helped develop to the things that eventually led to Tomah. So it's a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even with the contrast and difficulty with like doing anime opposed to original animation, do you still prefer doing anime over that?
It's all a different style,
Yeah.
all a completely different style, where anime has a particular kind of set of skills and acting that really resonate per the director as well. From one director would want this emphasized versus another director wants this. And same thing with Rainbow High. It's not anime, so it requires a different acting skill set,
Yeah.
but the director will also ask of something else as well. So I wish I could say yes and no, but it's always a little different each time.
Like, what is the darkest emotional headspace you've had to get into for
Yes.
a role?
So, oh yeah, the darkest emotional headspace. So there's one that is coming out, and I wish it was out that I could really express on, but the one that is currently out that I got super like emotional headspace with, it was oh man, I'm forgetting the name. Nope, I remember the name now. So when I was recording for Dying Light 2, that E3 trailer,
Yeah.
back in like I think 2019, I voiced this truck driver named Steve. I had to be so like hyper, but also kind of controlled because anything that I did could get me killed because he's a 14, 15-year-old kid and he's in like this apocalypse. So, and this was my first ever role, like my first ever booked role, like that
Yeah.
I auditioned for. So it was crazy huge, and the expectations were high. There was like it's like a AAA video game, so I was like, oh man, like I'm like a first time actor, and I had to be like had to get genuinely nervous, genuinely fear for my life, and it was constant anxiety, like, oh man, like I'm gonna die. This guy's holding me at gunpoint. So it wasn't necessarily method acting per se, but I had to get into the emotional headspace, but that was happening. So
Mhm.
you have to bridge whatever you can to make that feeling feel legitimate. And for me as an actor, I actually have to imagine things happening that are 10 times worse for me to get the
Right.
proper emotion to come across. So for me, the character's in a zombie apocalypse and he has a gun to his head as he's driving and he's not sure what's about to happen. I had to think 10 times worse, where it's just like literally everyone I know has died And like I had to like get into that kind of headspace, and I'm about to be next, and I only could do one certain thing that saved my life, and like he's already tortured me and all that stuff. So that kind of spiraling into a darker mindset really brought out that human performance, and oof, that was a fun one. It was crazy, and it was my first ever time acting on a booked role. So I was like, dude, is this what it's gonna take? That's insane. It was crazy. Yeah, so that one for sure.
And when you get to a place like that, do you have a specific process that you do to get out of that?
Yeah, so what was really interesting at the time was, again, that was one of my first ever booked roles. So I didn't have a process at that point. So I got stuck there after the session, and it was really hard. That actually taught me my own process that I use nowadays, where I record the line. Basically, I learned how to do short bursts of what is needed. I know how to live in that scene the moment I record the stuff. But the moment I'm done, I know how to get back to neutral. Because if your body stays in that area too long, you get that fight or flight response. You get that kind of, you trick your body into thinking it's in danger when it's not. So I learned how to always go back to neutral. Because if you have a foundation built on neutral, and then you constantly go to the extremes, it allows you to stay composed and stay in sessions longer, because, sessions can last long. If you're a main character, you have multiple days of 4 to 8 hour sessions sometimes. It's insane. And I had to learn how to drive myself back to neutral. Now, the process to get back there is, let's just say I'm high in that energy. I'm super high in that energy. Like, oh man, like it's super chaotic, super scary, super dark. I just had to, take a deep breath in. Okay, I know where I am. And then I kind of just look around. Okay, I'm in the recording studio. Cool. And I always have water. Always water. Breathing in water always helps. But the one little thing, mental note that I always have as a little kind of like a key ignition for me to start that process is I go, hey, I'm right here. Literally, I just say, hey, I'm right here. And then I look around. So I know exactly where I am presently. And it allows me to get into that neutral. So yeah, that's that process for me.
Yeah, that's a really insightful answer.
Thank you, man.
I know, it wouldn't be quite as dark, but I know that the live action series that you got to dub with Ezra Weiss.
Yeah.
It's
amazing name.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a show. I played one of the kid campers that ends up dying in the weirdest possible way. That one's pretty dark, but that one's more of like thriller, comedic, indie dark.
Yeah.
Versus Dying Light 2, it's like, no, this is an apocalypse kind of dark. So yeah.
And so on the complete opposite side of that, how did you get involved in playing Mango Cookie?
Oh my god, I love Mango Cookie. Mango Cookie's so wholesome. I don't know if you heard his lines, but he's such an adorable thing. Yeah. I got involved because at the time I wasn't fully signed on to Atlas. They were trying me out because they never really heard of me. And they would send auditions to people that they're kind of trying out. And I got one of the auditions for Cookie Run. That wasn't the code name at all. And I just read on it and I booked it. And I was like, oh, I booked this. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And I ended up coming in. They told me what the game was. I played Cookie Run online way back in the day. Like, that messaging app Line?
Yeah.
I used to have it online, and I think Kakao Talk as well. I used to play it on there. So I was like, dude, this is so cool. Which cookie am I playing? Learned I was playing Mango Cookie. And literally the director, Amberly Connors, she was just like, okay, he's the most wholesome, sweet thing on the planet. Have fun with it. I'm like, yeah. I know what to do. Come in, I say my first line, and she goes, yes. Yeah, we're gonna have a quick session. So we finished in like a fourth of the time, kind of nailed it, knocked it out of the park. That one was fun, but I remember that one the most because that one actually got me signed full on with Atlas, where Atlas was like, Christian's good. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. I love that role. Yeah. So, yeah.
And so moving on to Kenshin Impact, how involved was the just initial process of getting like incidental characters?
It was not involved at all. That's actually hilarious. I tell this story all the time. So I got to record my first ever session in Kenshin Impact on my birthday in 2020, September 27th, which was really cool. And before then, I was actually going to move out of the voiceover industry for a bit. I received a job offer out of California. and it was for a game producing job. It was fantastic. It was going to pay well. Unfortunately, it wasn't in Southern California, so I was going to do a big life decision. Like, I was thinking about it. I was like, going to get the plane ticket to meet it. I was going to talk to my family to be like, hey, this is a thing. I know this is like kind of a huge thing, but it's going to be good for me. Once I got the contract, I got an email saying that, hey, this director, Chris Fiella, would like for you to come in for incidentals for this game. And I'm like, I've never heard of this guy. That's weird. But hey, I might as well do it. It's a session. It's voiceover. That's cool. I go in and I was awful, dude. I was so bad. I was like so nervous, and it was just not good. Chris said I sounded fine. To me, I felt like I did awful. But there was one character I did really well in there, and his name was Ben, otherwise known as Man Justice Worker, who's like the biggest meme in Genshin Impact in the first two patches. But because I did those incidentals, I wanted to thank Chris Fiella. Be like, hey, dude, you gave me a shot. We have no idea who we are. Just wanted to say thank you. So I didn't know who he was, and I kept trying to search for like, maybe is there a contact information? Coincidentally, the game came out. I played the game. It was fun. I played it a lot. And Jen Losi messaged me. She's like, hey, I heard you in the game. You sound great. That's so awesome. And we started talking. She goes, do you play the game? I'm like, yeah, I'm actually like AR 36. She goes, oh my gosh, you're like the highest level amongst all my friends. Let's get a small group together. So we got the small group together, and it was Chris Fiella, Corey Yee, Jen Losi, and then me. Yeah. I was like, this is perfect. I get to thank Chris and get to know him. I never summoned the courage to thank him because I felt that was weird. In fact, the first time we played was so awkward. It was so weird. Yeah. And I promise this has a purpose. But basically, we were playing the games and we got to know each other. And it was so fun, and they were so cool. Like, every day at 8 p.m., I would wrap up dinner. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go play some games. Play some games with them, voice chat every day. Chris started streaming, so then that became that thing. And that grew into this huge thing. And because I was always around them, I always felt like I was around the voiceover industry where people would be like, yeah, are you working on anything? And I'd kind of be like, not really, I don't really get auditions. So Chris would give me a shot. He gave me a shot with Crafty. He's like a NPC. Yeah, that was fun. I still feel like I didn't do that well on that one, but he gave me a chance and he liked what I was doing. But because of Chris and because of everyone in that group, it gave me the confidence to stay in voiceover. Because remember, I was about to leave. So without Genshin and without this group, I would have left voiceover, like hands down. I would not be here. But because of that, I stayed and I got better and I got to play around with my friends behind the microphone more and more and more. And that led to these auditions. It's my first ever Genshin auditions. I can't say what characters, but the first ever round, I didn't get it. I was like, okay, that's fine. The second round, I got it, and that was Thoma. And I was just like, oh, yo, that's so cool. And that led to this snowball effect where, because I stayed, and because I kept playing behind the microphone with friends, because acting became so much easier, because I was always surrounded by people that really supported me, like Jen and Corey, and Chris. It snowballed into this big event, and things went insane. Where I was booking, I was constantly recording, and now it's my career. So literally, I was about to leave, but that one split decision between yes or no kept me in the industry. So that's why whenever people ask me about my origins and Genshin Impact, I'm like, dude, y'all don't even know. Genshin literally gave me my career. Yeah. So yeah, that's how that process was.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks, man.
And was there any inspirations that you drew when auditioning for Tomah and then getting him and initially playing him?
So we didn't really know who he was because there's a bunch of code names and they gave a basic description. I just tried to play him to what the spec said. I can't really say what the spec said, but I tried to play him to what the spec said, and it was fine. It worked, and it just felt very natural. I feel like anything that I do naturally has this kind of older brother, kind of bright kind of vibe, and that's what they wanted. So I ended up getting it that way, and the inspiration ended up building up because there's a character in Genshin Impact already called Yanfei, voiced by Lizzie Freeman, who is fantastic, and she has such a bubbly, wonderful approach to Yanfei, and it's just such great acting and wonderful control that I wanted to take that. So when I booked the character and I had my first ever session, I remembered Yenfei. I was like, dude, she had that bright kind of thing. She had such demand of the character. There was such unique qualities. Let me steal that. Let me steal that right now. So in the session, that's how I would develop the character. I would base it off of that. I based it a little bit off of Aladdin kind of vibes. Like, you know how the Aladdin had a little bit of that kind of cool kind of side? Kind of based it off of that as well. And that kind of warped itself combined with my own natural personality into what Tomah is today. So it didn't happen in the audition, surprisingly. It happened in the booth. So, yeah.
And what can you personally relate to him the most?
Everything, man. Tomah is like 95% me as a person. It's just some aspects are turned up, some aspects are turned down. But one of the biggest things I could relate to Tomah is that he actually says it in his Hangout quest that's out in 2.2 now, where he talks about, you know, people will say things. No matter what you do in your life, people will talk. And the only thing that you can focus on is what makes you happy as a person. And that's the only thing you can control. And that makes a lot of sense. And when I said that line, it was so personal that like, you know, if you go to listen to that line with the context, you could feel like, oh, okay, there was something personal there. Because again, you know, the more you saw what happened to my social media, you saw what's happening to the attention, everything snowballed. So you probably hear the phrase, the brighter you shine, the darker the light that casts. So there's a good bright and dark side that happens with this kind of rapid ascension. And, you know, that's happened, and, you know, it is what it is. But the only thing I can focus on is making sure I'm happy and that, you know, I do what I feel like is proper and correct. Because that's the only thing you can control. And that is the biggest thing I, you know, connect with Tomah, is that kind of aspect. He has that mentality. He goes, people will say whatever they want about me, but I'm happy to do what I can for the clan. I'm happy to do what I do for the Kamisato clan. And I feel the same way. I want to do things for me. I want to do things for my family. And that's it. And that's cool. Yeah.
Well, and even with saying how much you relate to him, is there any major points that are like in terms of differences?
Yes. That 5% difference, I have to be aware of it, because if I'm not, I will record a line and Chris will point it out saying, that sounds a little weird. Let's bring it this way. And I'm in my head, I'm like, that's right. I made that Christian. I didn't make it Tomah. So the 5% difference between me and Tomah is that Tomah has a more of a confident base to him as a person, because he's a little bit more settled in his life. He experienced a lot more trauma early on. And because he was rescued, his purpose came with his sense of, you know, fulfillment in life. When he was accepted by the Kamisato clan, he gained his purpose. So he feels solid. I'm 28, and that's pretty old. But at the same time, I'm still not at that point in life where I could feel confident saying that, like, you know, I have my life 100% together. Not there yet. So there's a little bit of a difference of gauge in terms of fulfillment of life. I definitely feel more fulfilled about my life nowadays compared to like a year ago. But even then, you know, if I base it off of the amount of Christian confidence versus the amount of Tomah confidence, one will certainly be higher than the other, you know? And another major thing that is different about Tomah compared to me as a person is Tomah will fight for the Kamisato clan and will do whatever means necessary, like whatever means necessary. And you'll see it in the Hangout. Me, I'm a very big empath. You know, I really like to consider all situations before I then, you know, go that route. So basically, Tomah will try to find those routes and then immediately go to where he needs to go. I will take longer to find the options and then eventually get there. So if I make it based off of me, it would take like 10 times longer to get to Tomah's solution, which he would have done, you know, frame one. So there's a difference. But yeah.
And who would you have wanted to play if you didn't get Tomah?
Oh, if I didn't get to play Tomah, I would have loved to play. Okay, so people think I voiced this character named Albert.
Okay.
Albert in Genshin Impact is like, people don't like him because he's obsessed in a creepy way over this character named Barbara. And it's like so unhealthy. I'm not saying I would want to voice Albert. I'm saying I would love to voice a major NPC like in that regard. Like, for example, there's Tepe, who's voiced by Christian Lamont. There's so many NPCs, but
Yeah.
basically a major NPC in the story quest. I would have loved to voice something like that because before Tomah, I was rarely in the game, like rarely. So definitely a major NPC. And if I had to pick a specific name, I would have loved to at least been someone like Albert, which sucks because he's a terrible character, but at least he's involved.
And
Yeah.
I know, of course, you play the game on and you like stream it and everything.
Yeah.
And don't you play as Chongyun mostly?
I do. As I am currently, I am a Chongyun main. Basically, I have my team as Chongyun main, Yenfei, Ganyu, and Bennett. Strong team. Once Tomah comes out, I am sorry, Chongyun. I am switching to Tomah. Just because, come on, man.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to play yourself in a video game, man? Come on. Yeah. But yes, you're correct. I do main Chongyun, yes.
Are you friends with Bo then?
I'm pretty acquainted with Bell. I don't really know him on a personal level,
Okay.
In terms of the industry, like I'm pretty friendly with like, Jen Losi, Corey Yee, Chris Viola, Kellen Goff,
Yep.
Xander Movis. Like, here's people that I'm like very, very, very good friends with. I'm definitely acquainted with everybody else. It's cool to like know them, but yeah, for the most part, just acquaintance.
Well, I just talked to Dina Sherman
Nice.
yesterday. And she was-
Dina, she's funny.
yeah.
She's bright and energetic, man.
And she was talking about like the whole picnic that all you guys had together and how fun that was.
I'm glad she had fun. Yeah, I had to help set that up. Like, if
Oh.
you saw all the tents,
Yeah.
like if you saw the tent, the party trays, like a person cleaning all the time, that was me. So,
Oh.
like I was the one that made sure that no one got sick and like we followed protocol. So I was busy like the entire time. So that's cool. Yeah, Dean is a great person. Very well. Very, very cool person. I'm glad I got to meet her then.
hmm
Yeah.
And I did have some subscriber questions that are specific to Genshin.
Yeah, go for it.
Somebody asked, someone named Doodle Dragon asked what your opinion on Taramaru is.
He's an adorable dog. I love him. When the whole world thought I was him, that was hilarious. There's a scene where the traveler comes in to the tea house and I'm playing a prank on him, but you just hear my voice and you just see it zoom into the dog and everyone's just like, oh, is Tomah a dog? So I love Taramaru. He's so cool. Adorable.
Somebody asked what your first impression was in terms of like Tomah's physical appearance and his lore.
Yo, he was so cool. when I was recording, I first recorded the cutscene when the ship sails in,
Oh,
and
right.
Beto and the traveler are walking, and you see this dude just like, I even have a coin here. We're just flipping it, and he catches it. It's like so cool. I thought he looked sick, and the fact that like I learned about his lore, I learned about his background, and I learned who he was as a person. I was like, man, this is as close as it's gonna get to put me directly into a video game as possible. So he was so cool. It was a blast, and it's still surreal to hear it nowadays. Where I'm like, oh snaps, that's me. That's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is probably an obvious question, but like with his attacks and all that, are you getting physical in the book?
Oh yeah, for sure. I love efforts. Efforts are so fun. Without moving your body, you won't understand how your body's going to respond.
Right.
There was actually someone that was teaching me back in the day, and he told me that go try out the things, like go boxing, go climbing, do everything and see how your body responds. That is going to be your natural instinct to how you do these efforts. And I was like, oh, okay. Now, obviously, I haven't stabbed a polearm in the ground and did a backflip kick. That's like, nah, I ain't that athletic, man. That'd be cool. But because I'm allowed and because I actually experienced in life how my body responds to certain things, I was able to give out natural reactions to said actions where I would see footage of the kick and I'm like, oh, okay, I know what to do. So I would do it and I give like variations and they're like, oh, okay, that sounds great. So you see me like, I'm like moving, I'm like kind of making sure my head stays, centered to the microphone, but I'm constantly moving, constantly like letting the little parts move, but not necessarily sway too much so we get extra sounds. But that movement allows me to really let my body just go like, you see what I mean? So like, yeah, I'm like, I'm bustling, dude. There's actually a thing I just recorded, like literally before here. I'm running, dude. I have to run so much, and then like the character eventually yells while running. So I'm just like, oh my god, I have to make sure my body's moving so it feels natural, and I'm yelling, making sure I'm not peeking and I'm not moving from the microphone and I'm not making extra noise. It was like such a nightmare, but it was fun. Yeah.
And do you have a, like, in terms of all that stuff and physicality and do it, or not just with Toma, but I guess in general, do you have a warm up process that you do?
When I don't do voiceover for a few days, I do have a warm up. There's no point in doing warm ups if you're already like constantly doing it.
Right.
You could do little things here and there just to kind of like spot check. But yeah, for the most part, I do have a warm up sequence. If I'm actually talking, usually helps. If I'm just having a normal conversation with someone, that's like number one.
Yeah.
Because acting is first and foremost a conversation. You're always having a conversation with something and or someone. So talking to someone is a great starter because it gets you to, get your mouth moving, stretch out the sides, loosen up the tongue, all of that stuff. And then I get into the technical aspects. Singing does help. If you just get a couple, warm-up songs here and there, it's a lot of fun. There's also very physical techniques such as semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. For example, if you have a straw, you could get a straw, you could hum, you could go up and down in pitch while you're humming with that straw. That allows you to loosen up the resistance in the back of the vocal folds. It allows for maximizing the amount of vocal production while minimizing the amount of stress. And yeah, just really basic stuff. I don't go too crazy because, again, I am not going to be singing an opera, not by any means.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be doing a voiceover where I'm having a conversation. So I just need to prepare myself for that level of stuff.
Well, this was a cool one. Somebody asked if there's any specific advice you have for other Filipino people that want to get into voice acting.
Yeah, that is such a good question because I'm unapologetically Filipino. just how I act, just how I am. That's just how it be. And it's really cool that because I announced this Tomah, people were kind of looking to me as inspiration. That's kind of insane where I'm just like, hey dude, like literally I'm just voicing behind a microphone. I'm just having fun. But if there's any advice that I could give to those that somehow I'm giving inspiration to, which first and foremost, thank you. That's very kind. Anytime you're hanging with your family, and anytime they're having those over-the-top conversations, the ones. Like I'm talking straight to those Filipino people, man. When you see those conversations where everything is super loud, super explosive, and you're at those parties, just sitting with the other kids your age while you watch everyone play mahjong and eat food or sing on the magic mic, like listen to that. And when you listen, remember what it sounds like, because those characters and the way they approach things will be really helpful for you in voiceover. Okay. Because I've heard so many different personalities, so many different voices, so many different things that like I would take bits and parts of that and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna use that for this one, I'm gonna use that for that one. So my audible ear bank up here in my brain is able to draw so many things. And also just be a person. Look, as an Asian American, we have a tough time letting our emotions be, out there for display. That's just the reality of the situation. I'm not saying every Asian American, but in general, when you have a conservative Asian childhood, especially of people in my demographic and my age, we had a hard time growing up expressing our emotions. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. Start addressing that. Start addressing that earlier. Because once you allow yourself to really just, be who you are, you will find much better success in voiceover. Mm-hmm. Because I always say, the more realistic you are as a person, the more realistic your acting is.
Yep.
If you are a fake person, your acting will come off fake. Now, I'm not calling people fake, no. But if you don't know how to be a real person, there's no way you're gonna act how to be. You're never gonna act like a real person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are my little tips and tricks for the Filipino voice actors out there, and also support your creative careers. Mm-hmm. They will never say yes to you if you say I'm gonna be a voice actor. They're gonna cry. and they're going to get mad at you. Don't do that. Find a smart way to approach it. For me, I approached it by getting a stable job in production. So they see that I'm making money and supporting myself while pursuing voiceover. Be smart about it, guys. So that's another one.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Thanks, man.
It is cool, of course, to see how varied the whole cast is, and they're also talented.
Yes. Yeah, I love them. They're really cool.
Well, I mean, normally the final question I do for interviews is, what do you want your legacy to be? But since your career just started, but I mean, unless you have a good answer for that.
Oh, yeah. You know, for my legacy, dude, I just want to, if people look at my career when all is said and done, I just want them to look at Christian and be like, yeah, he did his thing. Like, he did his thing and he had fun. I don't care about the quality, because like quality is all perceptive to ear. And like, if they just look at my career and go, yeah, he did his thing. He stayed in the industry for a while and he had fun. Cool. That's cool. That's all I can ask for, man, because that means that I was in the career for a while. I wasn't a flame out, meaning like I was a one and done, you know, and that's all I really ask for. Everything else I can't control.
I'm sure you've probably gotten a lot of, you know, messages from fans about Tomah specifically, like how he helps their situation in some way. Yeah,
it's really cool. You know, doing something like this, you don't think about how impactful it's going to be. I mean, like, as a person, you don't think about every single thing. There's no master plan. There's none of that stuff. What you're thinking about realistically is, dude, I didn't get much sleep yesterday. Am I gonna be able to sleep tonight? You know, you don't really have these grand schemes of grandeur and, you know, affecting the world. If you do, you're lying. But for me, I just go to the booth, I do my job. And to see people affected in this way because I'm doing my job, it's like, that's really cool. It's, you know, really validating. And, you know, I try to be there. You know, for example, I always show up on people's streams. Why? People think it's because I'm going for attention. No, it's because if I can make someone happy just by showing up and saying hi, then I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't I? As a person, wouldn't you want to see another person smile? Like, you know, all of us just want to live drama free with our lives and just, you know, go on with our days and enjoy it with the people. And, you know, for example, like whenever I get interviews, people are like, do I have to pay? Do I have to do these things? I'm like, dude, relax. Let's figure it out together. What do you want to do? Because again, to me, I sometimes forget that when they talk to me, they get nervous. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot I have that power. You cool. Don't worry about it. Like, I'm a person too. We could figure it out. And I actually had another interview where the person was like, dude, like, I'm so inspired by your career that like I started to like better myself as a person because I heard you say that on your stream once, and I took therapy and I've been feeling so healthy. And I was just like, wow, dude, something I said really affected your life that much? Like, damn, that's crazy. So the weight of my words is like definitely something that I've really been feeling nowadays. So, you know, it's really cool and I really appreciate it. I always try to tell people, don't put me on a pedestal. Never put me on a positive pedestal, because the more you put me on that, the harder I'll fall, dude. Because again, we're all human. We're all gonna make mistakes. So yeah, it's real cool. I'm so blessed. And to anybody who has that experience, you know, about Tomah, please send me it. I'll read it. Like, I'll read it and I'll answer eventually. It's just that, you know, my career kind of went I'm like, I don't get much rest no more, but I'm still gonna read it because it just means so much. Like, you know, like, you know, talking to you, like I've never really met you before the interview, but dude, you're a cool dude. And like, you know, I really want to thank you for doing these interviews, because you never know who's going to watch it and who might be affected and how they could affect their career. So I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. And, it was funny because when I posted on the Tomah mains subreddit saying that I was interviewing you tomorrow, it just immediately blew up and it just got so many like more than I would have thought it would. So
Really? The Tomah mains Reddit. I'm familiar with them. I sometimes kind of look in there and I'm like, I wonder what they saying. That's
yeah,
cool. Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome.
So I know they'll be excited to see this for sure.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks for willing to do this. It was really fun and insightful.
Hey, thank you for interviewing, man. If you ever want to do it again, if I ever get another character as crazy as Tomah, I'm always happy to do it. And thank you for being flexible, dude. Really appreciate that. Fun interview.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. I actually just heard from Josie last night.
Ah,
That should be next.
Yeah, I was talking to him at the Genshin picnic. He seems like a cool dude. All right, have fun with Josie, man.
Yeah. Bye.
All right,
Bye.
see you later, man.